Halifax, the name Ralph Hollett still carries the power of every punch he ever threw. Humble and fearless, he was more than a fighter. He was Halifax's Rocky.
Tough. Fairview tough. You know, I always think that in Nova Scotia, to carry a fight card, to fill an arena, you needed to be humble and you needed to fight your heart out every time you got in there.
Maybe he wasn't the best athlete, maybe he wasn't the best boxer, but he had toughness, he had character, he had durability, he had drive. And he was the guy who wrote his own story and made sure that he took his toughness and his drive and his durability all the way to a championship level.
And there's a bell to start round one. Fernand Marcotte and Ralph Hollett for the Canadian Middleweight title.
On January 22nd, 1980, at the Halifax Metro Centre, Hollett stunned the boxing world, beating Canadian legend Fernand Marcotte to claim the national middleweight title.
Trying to finish Marcotte off here.
Winding down now, it's just a little over.
Ralph Hollett of Halifax has gone the 12 rounds with Fernand Marcotte.
He would lose his belt to Chris Clarke, but then regain it with a spectacular knockout in September of 1980. He would later defeat Marcotte again, and in 1982 defeated Toronto's Eddie Mello for a second time, sealing his legacy as one of Canada's greatest middleweights. In his corner for most of his prime, working as an assistant to Tom McCluskey, was a future Canadian boxing legend.
You know, he was one of the guys. He was one of the guys at the pub. He was one of the guys at the restaurant. He was one of the guys in the gym. One of the guys. Never did he think he was better than anybody else. But when it came time to boxing, when people started talking crap at a press conference or whatever, well, that nice guy of Hollett, you know, got turned around and put back in the closet, and this true grit, competitive fighter came out heavy, hard, and strong.
In 2012, Ralph Hollett's toughest fight came outside the ring as he battled cancer with the same grit that defined his career. He passed away at just 59, but his legacy endures.
Ralph Hollett was the best for a long time, and he made a championship contribution to his sport, to his community, and those are the type of people that you open halls of fame for to make sure they get inducted and celebrated, not just now, but for future generations to appreciate.
But he certainly lived it to the extreme, and he left a great legacy as to who he was as a fighter, and more importantly, as to who he was as a man.
Good guy, hard as nails, humble to a fault, what you want in your Hall of Famer.
They called Ralph Hollett the Heat, and even when life threw its hardest punches, he stayed humble and never went down without a fight.
When your career is over, and of course someday it will be, Ralph, how do you want people to remember you?
I just want them to remember me as Ralph Hollett, and that's spectacular. No better, no worse than anybody else.
Ralph Hollett, three-time Canadian middleweight champion and our newest inductee to the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame.